Tucked deep in the Wiltshire countryside, just northeast of Hungerford, stands Littlecote House, an Elizabethan mansion surrounded by ancient parklands and timeless quiet. For more than 7 centuries, its walls have watched generations rise and fall, its grand rooms echoing with the whispers of power, passion and betrayal. The earliest known house was built in the 13th century, when the de Coulstone family held the land. Through the marriage of Elizabeth de Coulstone to William Darrell in 1415, Littlecote passed into the hands of the Darrell family, who would rule over the estate for nearly 200 years, and whose name would later become forever darkened by legend. One of their descendants, Elizabeth Darrell, survived as maid of honour to Catherine of Aragon, first Queen of Henry VIII. She became known not only for her courtly grace, but also for her infamous affair with the poet Sir Thomas Wyatt. Yet it was another Darrell, generations later, who would bring lasting infamy to the family name. In the mid-1530s, King Henry VIII is said to have courted Jane Seymour at Littlecote, a connection made possible because Jane's grandmother was Elizabeth Darrell. The house, even then, was a place where secrets of the court and whispers of scandal intertwined. But the final Darrell to hold Littlecote, William Darrell, known locally as Wild Will, would cast a far darker shadow over the estate. Born to privilege, he squandered his fortune, alienated his neighbours, and lived a life of reckless excess. His father's mistress had been left the house by will, but Darrell fought to reclaim it, succeeding in 1560, only to bring ruin upon himself. Darrell's entanglements were not merely financial. He was accused of an affair with Anne Hungerford, wife of Sir Walter Hungerford, a neighbour and rival. The scandal led to lawsuits, imprisonment, and whispers that the Darrell household was a place of sin and corruption. Sir John Popham acquired the estate soon after, and upon Darrell's death began construction of the magnificent Elizabethan brick mansion that stands to this day. Completed in 1592, it became a symbol of both prestige and mystery. Popham himself rose to prominence, later serving as Speaker of the House of Commons and Lord Chief of Justice. Yet the origins of his possession of Littlecote remained a subject of unease and whispered suspicion. In the centuries that followed, James I, Charles II, and William of Orange all passed through its halls. The unique Dutch parlour, still visible today, was decorated in the 1660s and captured Dutch seamen whose delicate artwork still watches from the walls and ceilings, silent witnesses to the strange legacy of Littlecote. The house remained in the Popham family for generations, its history interwoven with politics, education and war. In the 1640s, the family became renowned for pioneering the education of the deaf, teaching young Alexander Popham to speak, a remarkable achievement for its time. By 1805, the family name had changed to Leybourne Popham, and the house underwent grand refurbishments befitting its status. In the 20th century, Littlecote passed to the Wells family, founders of the famous tobacco dynasty. During World War II, its corridors once again filled with the sound of boots and commands, as the mansion became a military headquarters for the British and later the American forces. Officers of the 101st Airborne Division, including Colonel Robert F. Sink, Lieutenant Colonel Charles H. Chase, occupied its stately rooms while preparing for the D-Day invasion. A memorial plaque still marks their presence. After the war, Littlecote returned to private hands. In later years it passed through several owners, including entrepreneur Peter de Savary, before becoming a Warner Leisure hotel. Yet, despite modern comforts, the air of mystery never left. For Littlecote is not merely a relic of history, it is a house with a soul, and that soul is restless. If you're enjoying my content and want to help me make even better episodes, you can now support me on Buy Me a Coffee. Every bit helps to upgrade my gear, spend more time researching, and keep bringing the stories you love. Just head over to buymeacoffee.com/ghost tales. It's quick, easy, and really makes a difference. I've also put a link in the description. Thanks for keeping this going. The grandeur of Littlecote House may have endured for centuries, but beneath its beauty lingers a deep unease. To walk its echoing corridors is to feel the weight of secrets pressing in from the past, the sense of something of the Darrells remain, caught forever between guilt and damnation. For more than 400 years, Littlecote has been haunted by tales of betrayal, blood, and retribution. The most infamous of these is the legend of Wild William Darrell, the reckless nobleman whose sin, it is said, cursed the house for all time. According to one of England's earliest chroniclers, John Aubrey, the story of Littlecote's dark deed was no mere rumour. He claimed that when Darrell's mistress gave birth to his illegitimate child, a midwife was brought blindfolded to the mansion. There, in a high-ceilinged chamber, lit by the cruel glow of firelight, she helped deliver the infant, only to see the child torn from its mother's arms and hurled into the flames. The smell of burning flesh filled the room as the woman screamed. Aubrey wrote that the midwife, blindfolded again and dismissed with gold, could not rest. Haunted by what she had witnessed, she retraced the journey in her mind. The distance, the sound of running water, the size of the house, until she found her way to Littlecote. When she entered the hall, she recognised it instantly. The story spread like wildfire. Neighbours whispered, enemies of the Darrells rejoiced. And though William Darrell was never tried, many swore that he had bribed Sir John Popham, his own kinsman and lawyer, to ensure his freedom. Whether true or not, the crime became a curse. Before the year was out, Darrell was dead, thrown from his horse while hunting. The tale says that the spirit of the murdered child appeared before him in a halo of fire, causing his terrified steed to rear and cast him to the ground. The spot where he fell became known as Darrell's Stile, and on stormy nights it is said that his ghost still rides there, a dark figure on a phantom horse, accompanied by the baying of spectral hounds. But the haunting of Littlecote does not end with Wild Will. In the centuries that followed, others claimed to see his restless spirit stalking the estate. Servants told of hearing hooves galloping in the dead of night, followed by a scream that faded into the wind. Guests awoke to the sound of a coach tearing up the drive, only to find the courtyard empty when they looked from their windows. According to a local legend, that phantom coach is an omen, a warning that death will soon visit the house. In 1861, when the infant heir, Francis Popham, lay gravely ill, his nurse heard the unmistakable sound of horses and wheels racing towards the entrance. She rushed to the window, thinking the child's parents had returned, but outside was only silence and darkness. By morning, the baby was dead. To this day, the phantom coach is said to appear whenever tragedy threatens the Popham line. Other spirits are said to wander the rooms and grounds of Littlecote. In the Dutch parlour, where painted sailors adorn the walls, visitors have felt unseen eyes upon them, as though the captured artists who decorated the room still linger, bound to their work. The long gallery carries a strange chill, even on the warmest days, and many have reported the ghostly presence of Gerard Lee Bevan, a disgraced tenant from the early 20th century imprisoned for embezzlement. His figure has been glimpsed at the far end of the gallery, tall, melancholy, and fading into the shadows before he can be approached. the house's more benevolent spirits are no less intriguing. During an investigation by the famed psychical researcher Peter Underwood, clairvoyant Tom Corbett reported sensing a beautiful woman in the gardens. He later recognised her from a portrait within the house, Mrs. Leybourne Popham, one of the later mistresses of Littlecote. Another presence, he said, occupied the Chinese bedroom, a restless energy that he called a busybody. Mrs. Wells, wife of then owner Major George Wells, agreed that the description was apt. The room, she said, always felt occupied, as though someone unseen disapproved of change. Even the nearby church at Ramsbury, 2 miles from the house, is not untouched by its legend. Parishioners once spoke of seeing a pale rider passing silently through the churchyard. Darrell himself, seeking redemption or revenge. And at Darrell's stile, where the accursed nobleman met his end, the atmosphere remains heavy and strange. Locals avoid it after dusk, for there the air is said to smell faintly of smoke, and the ground to tremble with the echo of hooves. Those brave enough to linger claim to have heard a child's cry, faint, distant, and full of sorrow. Today, Littlecote House serves as a grand country hotel, its halls alive once more with laughter and light. Yet many guests report waking in the night to the sound of a carriage approaching, or footsteps pacing the gallery when all should be still. Perhaps the living and the dead have reached an uneasy peace here, or perhaps the house is simply waiting, as it always has, to remind those who enter that beauty and horror are but two sides of the same story. For Littlecote, it seems, remembers everything.